light discussion, obviously. So this is Saja Zeadeh, and I am representing IMF International Metropolitan Fellowship, the Arabia chapter today. And we're going to speak about different topics, going through navigating climate-resilient cities and urban leadership and sustainable development in the Middle East. So on behalf of the IMF, the Arabia chapter, and all the speakers, allow me to welcome you with us today, and just to hope that you have an enjoyable experience with us. So navigating climate-resilient cities goes through different stages, and so our presentation, and we're going to go through, and it's not working again. Okay. We're going to go through climate-resilient urban strategies, and this is a topic that's going to be presented by Dr. Wafa Daily. And we are sorry that Dr. Wafa did not manage to come with us in person, but we're going to present her session in a recorded mode. So we're going to have a video for the session of Dr. Wafa. And it's going to talk about resilient urban strategies. And then we're going to go through the leadership and climate actions and how leadership influence and mitigate urban problems and climatic change problems. And this is going to be with Professor Omar. Amireh is going to be with us in a minute. And lastly, it's going to be with me. We're going to talk about a man-resilient strategy. It's going to be an interactive session, so a little bit of fun, and we're going to share solutions, and we're going to share thoughts about the resilient strategy of Amman and other innovative solutions for urban strategies. However, we're going to go through different stages of development, and starting from the idea until the implementation of the idea and the consideration of stakeholders and the process. So let me start with the first session for Climate-Resilient Urban Strategies by Dr. Wafa, or Professor Wafa Daily. And it's not working again. Okay. So can you just play the video? Yeah, sir. So Professor Wafa Daily is the lead of the Arabia chapter of IMF, and she's an executive director of EHAAR International Organization in the US. With over 2 decades in working in academia, government, and international organizations, private sector across the US and the Middle East, her research interests included urban recovery, resilient governance, fragility, conflict and vulnerability, smart cities, metropolitan planning, management and governance, and accessibility. So, climate-resilient urban strategies in the Middle East by Dr. Wafa Daily. First of all, please allow me to briefly introduce our IMF, which is International Metropolitan Fellowship, to you, with its headquarters that is based in Madrid. The IMF was established in 2019, and it is a global community. It's a global community that is supporting sustainable development, planning, management, and governance with over 250 members from 8 international chapters across 50 countries. We are dedicated to fostering growth while balancing efficiency, equity, and environment through continual learning and innovation. By 2030, we hope and we aim to be globally recognized for our expertise in metropolitan planning, management, and governance. And I would like to take this opportunity and invite you to visit our website and also join our community and become a member of IMF growing community. So for today, our contributions to the forum is coming from IMF Arabia chapter, which includes all Middle Eastern and North Africa countries, and in collaboration with the University of Georgia.
Today, my colleagues, Professor Omar, architect Saja, and I will take the climate resilience, urban leadership and sustainable development in the Middle East society, taking Jordan as a case study, which the slides will be presented later on by my colleagues Saja and also Professor Omar. I will take the first part, of course, of the presentation and briefly discuss the climate resilience urban strategies in the Middle East, Eastern cities, and how can we build tomorrow's cities with more resilience and have more strategies that is supporting resilience and facing climate change. So let's talk a little bit about the meaning of resilience. And as we know, this is a broad definition, and there is a lot of literature out there talking about resilience. It started with ecological resilience, that is coming from the ability of the ecosystem to absorb disturbances and yet maintain the fundamental relationship and state variables. Then returning to the singular equilibrium ecosystem that can reach multiple steady states based on the intensity and nature of the disturbance. So the ecosystem can shift significantly the disturbance, pushing them beyond certain threshold points. Then we have the engineering resilience that came from the perspectives of sensors and how systems return to the equilibrium after being disturbed and having the shock. Again, the system coming back to underscoring return specific to a specific stable point. Then the evolutionary resilience that came and become like beyond the notion of equilibrium. The evolutionary resilience suggests that the system and to be ecological or social and constant non-linear transformation. They don't merely react to disturbance upon reacting to threshold, but continually adapt and evolve around the challenge and the stress that is affected the place. And then we come to the urban resilience. This is the capacity of cities to sustain themselves, recover and learn from the disturbance and the event, especially those related to climate change. So we see here in the slides that we have the resilience and focusing in three areas. That's the respond, recovery, and also the transformation, and all these stages explaining the ability of the city to cope with the shock, preserve the basic infrastructure or basic support for the society to meet their basic needs. Then we have the recovery part where the city has the ability to mitigate the impact of the shock and move from crisis to a steady state, balancing the disturbance. Then we have the transforming stage where the state learns from the disturbance stage and move forward, learning from former changes. For the purpose of this presentation, we can categorize the Middle Eastern countries to 4 categories based on the current situation that is faced by the region, the MENA region. And we can easily define that we have four status for these countries. We have the rich oil exporting states that includes Bahrain, Kuwait, Oman, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates. And we have the stable states that includes Jordan, Egypt, Morocco, Algeria, and Mauritania. Then we have the less stable states that includes Lebanon, Iran, Tunisia. Then we have the fragile states under the definition of fragility. We have Iraq, Libya, Syria, Sudan, Palestine, and Yemen. And now we have the how we can foster resilience in Middle Eastern cities. Middle Eastern cities in fact is faced by multiple challenges. The United Nations has claimed that the MENA region, which is the Middle Eastern and North Africa region, is among the most vulnerable places in the world related to the climate change. So we have the climate change and vulnerability in the region, and the key factors that affect that is the considerable exposure to natural threat. We have the extreme weather conditions. We come with the drought, the landslides, water stress, pollution, conflict, insecurity, displacement, migration, marginalization, growth of population, young population in the region, unstable oil prices. Then we have the capacity for responding to disasters or sudden effects, but very weak recovery and transformative capacities exist in the region. Corruption, of course, and weak governance. Then the last but not the least, the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. And we have the intersection of three items that are affecting the resilience, and they are evolving around each other. We have the urban development, climate change, and leadership. So they all together, they play critical roles in getting the good strategies for the MENA region to cope with the climate change and also address sustainable development goals. For that purpose, for the urban development, we have so many issues, including just have the key issues in here, the rapid urbanization and infrastructure challenges. That's all. Most countries, their infrastructure is outdated, and they need to have the updated versions of their infrastructures. Then we have the climate change, as mentioned before, many factors that affecting the climate change, including vulnerability, the temperature and extreme heat, and food security and water stress. For the leadership, then we have the governance and policy regulations, regional collaboration and cooperation, and education and awareness campaigns that may basically affect the strategies that can be adopted in the Middle Eastern countries. For the critical intersection, we have the this intertwined nature of urban development, climate change, and leadership, shaping the sustainable and resilient future of Middle Eastern cities through proactive planning, policy enforcement, regional cooperation, and innovative thinking among leaders. Middle Eastern countries can navigate the complex nexus of urban development and also climate change. So we will need more of integrated policies, more of climate resilience, urban planning policies as well, and standards in their transition to sustainable energy, engaging all stakeholders at the same table, including the private sector, public sector, community, and also the civil society. And then we have the innovations and investment, encourage the investments. More of innovation in the region can also help in facing the critical intersection between the three items: the leadership, the climate change, and the sustainable development, urban development. And then finally, we have the capacity building, which is a bigger factor in there that plays a lot of critical roles when we have the disaster, but we don't have the capacities to deal with the disaster or to deal with the stress or any rising issues in there. Based on the architecture planning and design firm, Collision RT KL, they defined 10 principles for resilient cities in the Middle East, and that includes while designing or planning cities. These factors, they define them as key and elements that can be or needs to be integrated within any plan for cities. Density and polycentricity, then mixed use, have the mobility, have the walkability and greenery, identity and attractions, diversity, inclusion, equity, accessibility and safety, which are like major key issues in the regions. Then we have the affordability for housing, the carbon neutrality, technical and digital innovations, then the flexibility to deal with all these things. So we can have the flexible system that can rebound and also deal with any future unexpected changes. So we need to adopt robust planning methodologies and strategies to have more resilient system. And also this should be captured within a centered frame, the framework that should be also based on evidence-based framework. So for the evidence-based framework, it's not just a framework, it should be based on evidence and data and all factors that can bring more information to have some more informative decisions and to evaluate the vulnerability and hazards that cities are exposed to, and determine the vulnerabilities across fundamental sectors, social, economic, urban, environmental dimensions, and also gauge their institutional capacities to respond, recover, and evolve in the aftermath of adversities. From here, we have for urban resilience assessment framework. It's basically built on 3 items to reduce the exposure to hazards, minimize the vulnerabilities, and also strengthen institutional capacities to respond, recover, and transform. And each of these items has some steps or some factors related, critical factors related to them, and how we can strengthen that framework. Like, for example, we have in the part of reducing the exposure to hazards, we have 2 types of natural of catastrophes or disasters. It's the natural ones and also the human-made disasters. Natural ones can be the flood, it can be the drought, it can be the heat, it can be the earthquake, it can be multiple things that is related to the natural, but the more effective one is the human-made ones that comes to geopolitical tensions, conflict, wars, cyber attacks, air pollutions. So these should be targeted and measured. and people, they can, decision maker people, they can also have more evidence to be to build that good framework that can assess the resilience in the city, resilience in the region, resilience in the country. So then you go to the minimizing the vulnerabilities. You go from the basic needs to the society needs to the economic mandatories, coming back to the urban environmental issues. Then you ended up with the strengthening the institutional capacities, where you need to have more powerful strategies, policies, regulations, and also governance, more partnerships with different stakeholders, and building the capacities and capabilities of the government. And then you have the finance issues. And then you have the system and the data. That's very important, that you can have the data. Once you have the data and you have the information, you are building more flexible and good system in there, and good assessment framework. Then you deliver the service. So this is the framework, how the framework can be adapted within the Middle Eastern cities. Then for the resilience key features, the resilience needs to be anti-spatory, future-proof. It should have more resource. It needs to be agile. It needs to be participatory and citizen-centered, and also innovative with a holistic approach to make more out of it, to bring the creativity, the innovation, proactive, to be proactive, utilizing proactive strategies, so you can see or you can expect what's coming next, so you are ready. You just not to wait until something happens, then you react. Now we are thinking of like what is beyond resilience. So now we are having that resilience system and the framework for resiliency. Now we're thinking about beyond the resilience concept, the resilience versus anti-fragility, and what is the difference between both of them, and how important to adopt such a concept in Middle Eastern cities, given the vulnerabilities, different issues that is coming across the region from different countries, from the 4 categories that we addressed at the beginning. So the resilience primarily emphasizes on the system's ability to withstand, recover from setbacks, while the anti-fragility enhances its capacity to flourish beyond responding to the challenge, disturbance, error, faults, and the threats, any external threats continue beyond that. So we need that type of continuity. We need that type of flexibility. Anti-fragility, I think it's very important to adopt. So we can be having that concept beyond resiliency. So we have 3 levels for fragility, anti-fragility, I mean. The macro level, which targets the entire system, that can target the broader picture, would say. And then we have the meso level that goes with the structure based on lessons learned from disasters or from other incidents that happens. Then we go with the micro level that targets the details. So we're moving from fragility to resilience, and then to anti-fragile system or fragility. The fragility, where we have the damage and we have the order, and then the resiliency, we have the unaffected. It's unaffected by the disorder. But the anti-fragile, this is when we learn from the disorder, benefit from the disorder, and make better system moving forward. Stronger cities, stronger communities, and having better future, and better foreseeing, I would say. anticipation for the future, what would be. So we are ready to face all that. I think that's all for my part today. I'll handle the rest of the presentation to my colleagues, Professor Omar and Architect Saja. Thank you so much for listening, and my apologies for not being able to be in person for some of these concerns or issues. I think the delay and issuing the visa, but I'm glad that I was able to deliver the presentation to you. Thank you so much. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. I'm so honored to participate in Marmara Forum as a representative of Municipality of Baghdad, first and second as a member of IMF International Metropolitan Fellows Arabian Chapter. In this short video and few minutes, I'm trying to talking about the new project that the Municipality of Baghdad implementing now in the city of Baghdad. First of all, I'm asking you to give me the chance to introduce myself. I am Ali Sabra Habib, urban planner working for the Municipality of Baghdad in the Committee of Urban Development in the Municipality of Baghdad. In this short video, I'll mention two new projects because it's big and important for the city, and it deals with some new features that we are trying to implement in the city as climate changes and sustainability and urban development. First project is municipality of first project is New Sadr City. New Sadr City. Here I need to explain a little about the old city of Sadr. This city is with 4 million people in 5 or 6 thousand acre. Yes, 5 or 6 thousand acre with 4 million people. So it's a kind of a hill and a very bad system of urbanism in the city, absence of utilities and services, traffic jam, severe traffic jam, absence of clean air or good condition for environment. So the government trying to find a solution to enhance the situation in the city. That's why we figure out the new project, which is named New Sadr City. This project will implement in almost 5,000 acre with 100,000 housing units, with the new services and a new routes and a new master plan. In many ways, this project will be better than before, than the old city. This project will aim to enhance the environment. For example, the old city contains almost 11%, 1100% of green zones and open spaces, and this percentage increased to 44 in the new city, which it will be includes new open spaces, public spaces, gardens, entertainment areas, and also the way and the highways and the routes that we will build in the new city. It's almost triple from the old city, and so it's a way to reduce the traffic jam. And also this city will be like a pool and a new attractive feature that will attract the investors, attract the businessmen to come to the city and make some new projects. So we'll find a high percentage of jobs, which it's now missing in the city. There is many factors, there is many data that I need to show, but I will send it later. For in a brief, the city will enhance the environment and reduce the climate changes and increase the open spaces and green areas in the city. Also, we'll find new jobs for the young people there in the city, and even for the all the level of education system in the city also. And also, as I mentioned earlier, reduce the severe traffic jam and build almost a triple area of roads and highways in the new city. This is the first. This is the first project, and the second project is Al Rashid camp. Al Rashid camp was a camp for Iraqi army, and it's enormous area, almost 4,000 acres, and it was just a camp for army and military facilities with stores for armed trucks and etc. for the Iraqi army. Now the city going to this area, and now we are working on a new master plan to make this 4,000 acre as a green area with almost 12 kind of forest with many activities for women, for kids, for business, for golf, for sport, for many kind of activities. As I mentioned earlier, these 4,000 acre will include more than 90% of green zones and area, just almost 10% as housing units and some services. So this project come to enhance the condition of environment and to bring some a new eco-friendly systems of transport, even of public transport with electrical systems and anonymous cars of taxi and some new ways of transport from area to another, like tramway or railway or even metro. So the enhance will exclusively be in the environmental condition and also the sustainability, as I mentioned, to transform from the old way of transport with the small cars and minibuses to a new public transport with a new system of eco-friendly way. And all these activities will implement at the plan, say, in 3 years. So maybe in new 5, as I mentioned, for 2 projects in 5 new in 5 next 5 years, maybe we'll find more than 10,000 acres of Baghdad will change dramatically to a better way to enhance the environmental conditions for the city, to increase the way of thinking for the people and reduce the traffic jam to the minimum and find a new systems of transport, bring a new systems of eco-friendly programs in the projects. Also to find new jobs and to build a new area for attracting investors from out Iraq to come to and build some projects in these areas. I think the future will be good if the government and Municipality of Baghdad stay working on some like these projects. And I hope I will talk in next forum about what we did and how the process of work was changed because the wheel of success will not be stopped, never. Thank you.
So thank you, everyone. We're getting there. And please allow me to welcome our next speaker, which have played major roles in Jordan. and he's Professor Omar Amireh from the University of Jordan. He's a professor of architecture and urban planning, and he held academic and management positions at Alexandria University in Egypt and SPK Consultants. He participated in architectural projects around the Arab world and supervised and examined master thesis in many prestigious universities. So Professor Omar Amireh is gonna take us through the leadership and climatic actions in terms of urban planning. So please welcome Professor Omar. Hello, Professor.
Assalamu alaikum. You know, I've been spending 2 hours driving from Bashat Shahir to this place. Within these 2 hours, everything changed in my mind. You know, I was planning to speak about urban leadership potentials, characteristics, properties, parameters. Within these 2 hours, the first things that came to my mind, the topic of the conference, beyond. While sitting in the driving with the GPS is working, I've noticed that I'm in what I can call a traffic stock market. Because the GPS, every minute, he change the prices of the street. Every minute, he give me that go from this street, you save 3 minutes, or follow this way, you add, or you spend more time. And I spent 2 hours, actually, in what I called it the stock market of the street. So I said, this is beyond my capacity. So it came to my mind, the beyond. What's beyond? What we are going to do beyond? And I think this is very interesting. It's not resilience. If we are in good health, but we are, you know, not happy. Happy will, if you are not happy, it will destroy your health. So if you are resilient and you are not beyond resilience, you are not happy. You are not going to solve the problem. Resilience is not going to solve the problem, even if Istanbul become a resilient city. Is it going to solve the problem? The people will be more happy? No, they are not going to be more happy. So it came to my mind, this is beyond my capacity. So it came to my mind a project I worked in Saudi Arabia, north of Jeddah, about 80 kilometers north of Jeddah. It's south of King Abdullah University of Science and Technology. It was about sustainable master plan for a town. So they give the job to HOK. HOK is the biggest urban planning project in Canada, in the whole world. They refused their proposal. They came to me. I said, what I can give you to you? So it came to my mind about a way of thinking about something called land carrying capacity. It's the capacity of the land we are living in. It's a living being. So I go and I did the master plan, the sustainable master plan within that context, the land carrying capacity. What the land carrying capacity speaks? It speaks about 4 things. It speaks about users, about time, about space, and about activity. It's about how to come with an equation that bring balance to those 4. So I did the whole master plan according to this concept, land carrying capacity. And I get charts and calculation and everything. I came to the ownership or to the client. I said, listen, I'm not going to solve your problem, but I'm going to give you an innovative idea that will give you the chance to choose what do you want. Because you know that the big problem now and we're living in, we don't know what do we want. We doesn't know because the varieties, we have a whole variety of things and we are becoming more and confused. And this is one of the examples. A lot of, in the market, there is a huge number of telephones and you become confused which one to choose. So I present to him a concept called land carrying capacity. He can choose. I said, listen, I designed a theater, an amphitheater for you, and I designed a playing field for soccer. I want to ask you, which one you are going to use? That place which will house 300 people within 2,000 meters squares, or this land which can house 22 persons within 20,000 square meters? Give me your choice. He said, I tell him, listen, wait. Now you're giving happiness to 300 people while in 1,000 meters square, while you're giving athletic facilities, athletic for 22 persons. Which one for you? Which one you go for? He said, no, I'll give priority to the amphitheater. So this is the choices we are going to build upon. Okay, this is my introduction about the topic which I'm going to speak, which came to my mind within the last 2 hours driving from there to here. I was preparing to talk about urban leadership potentials. Potentials is the capacities inside us. In resilience, we know المناعة in Arabic called مناعة اللي هي resilience. مناعة اللي هي, I think in English, مناعة, immunity. Yeah. So I said potentials, the immunity is one of the potentials. So I said the leadership potentials, who's going to be a city as a leadership or a person as a leadership, what potentials he has to have to enter. First of all, I said he should be wide range exposure to variable experience. Me, myself, I would say that I'm a good potential leadership. I said why? Because I've designed a 7,000 residential unit town growth center. That's a huge experience. Working with British firms. I designed the King Palace, it's called the Justice Palace in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. It's the biggest or the main palace for the King of Saudi Arabia. Oh, that's a good experience. Also, I designed so many projects. At the same time, I teach for 45 years in the university. Oh, this is a huge potential experience. I'm exposed to many, but does that make me a leadership? No, that doesn't make me a leadership, because we have to go to the second point. The second point say, flexibility, openness to diverse solutions. That's better than the first one. That's better than the first one. To become a successful leadership, you have to think, to be open. For me, for myself, when any of the students came with the very silly idea, I said, no, this is not a silly idea. This is a perfect idea. Even I know it's a silly idea. But I say, no, this is a perfect idea. And I work with him to make it perfect. Because I should be open. I should be flexible. That's better from the first one. The second one say, inclusive decision making. I should not reject anything. I should not send away any person. I should work with everybody. If you are going to be a leadership, you have to work with everybody. And that's what I do. For me, the students, one of the students, he have autism. And he doesn't like to look in the eyes of the people. And he has a project with me. So what I do, when I teach him, I don't look in his eyes. I keep my head down. Although, at the same time, as you see, always I look in the eyes of the people. But for that person in particular, I didn't look in his eyes. So you have to be inclusive, to know everybody, to know everything, every situation, every case, what is required. The fourth thing, multidimensional approach. My son came and said, Father, I want to learn, I want to study architecture. I said, no. He said, why? I am a good painter. He has a beautiful paint. I said, you are not multidimensional. You have no multidimensional approach. He said, because the architect, he has to be multidimensional approach. He has to have so many ways to think. I told my son, Abdullah, you are one-track-minded person. Now, he's a successful brain surgeon. And I know if he study architecture, he'll fail. So it's a multidimensional approach. Inclusive implementation. Inclusive implementation, when you do anything, when you do any information, when you implement anything, you have to be inclusive that everybody, every space, every problem, everything is part of your implementation. You have to be readable, applicable, and narrative. You see, I'm a narrative now because I put, my first colleague, Dr. Wafa, she's very scientific. And she presented her work in the scientific slides, everything. But we need narrative people who can say story, because people love the story more than, even if you are very scientific. For Einstein, when he talk always in this narrative because he's working in very complicated sciences. Even if you work in very complicated sciences, but you have to narrate your sciences. Urban leadership parameters. Now in architecture, there is a new trend called by Patrick Schumacher. He's a British. He worked with Zaha Hadid, the most famous architect in the world. And now he came with a new trend in architecture called parametism. In his parametism work, he showed that it's a very good idea. And it used the artificial intelligence, actually. But he used it before the artificial intelligence, that you have a lot of variables. What you are going to do with this, a lot of variables? First of all, you have to analytical mindset. Your mind should be work in direction analytical. Second, interchangeable analysis between quantitative and qualitative data. This is a huge problem. This is one of the many problems we face all the time in sciences. Because we, as architects and urban planners and urban designers, we work always in qualitative measures. But people doesn't know qualitative. They know quantitative. So how you are going to change between quantitative to qualitative, that's a main issue if you are going to be a leadership parameters. The third one, diverse spectrums of socio-economic reflection. Socio-economic, which are living now, and it's the main problem of the world now, is the socio-economic. With the disasters, with the crisis. I have a student now working with a thesis, master thesis. She came with an idea for her topic. It's about called disasters reserve, or crisis reserve. I said, what you're going to do? She said, I want, like we have an urban reservation or ecological reservation, I want to go a crisis reservation. It's an anticipatory thinking, way of thinking. And that goes in the socio-economic reflection. You have to be beyond. The fourth thing, project of morphology on implementation. Morphology, one of the architects explained morphology in a beautiful way. He said, this small creature in the sea who built his shell. He first builds his shell, then he adapts himself inside his shell. And this is what we are doing now. We build the cities, we build the architecture, and we adapt ourselves, and that's called morphology. And it's vice versa. Instead of adapting to architecture and adapting to planning, I think architecture and planning should adapt to ourselves. The last thing is the realization of ideas. Ideas, in my mind, I said, if I'm going to solve the problem of the traffic jam in Istanbul, what I should do? Really, I was thinking, it's a mess. It's a mess outside. A traffic of about 35 kilometers took me 2 hours. I said, now, if I'm going to be smart and there's ideas for me to solve the problem I said, there's another thing, I should work in layers. Now we are all of us is working on the ground layer. I said, okay, we have to build tunnels, not tunnels land, tunnels of water, and to make canals, and to make the transport, water transport part of the system. I think, okay, that will cost a lot. but we need another layer of transport. And maybe the third layer of transport, which with innovative ideas now with the air-moving cars and things that's the third layer. So I said we have to work on layers. If we are going to work on the same layer, we are not going to reach any solution. That's the realization of ideas. The last thing, I think I'm at the end of my presentation. It's leadership, climatic action, role of urban leadership in climatic action. What is our role in climatic action? You see, everybody is talking about the changes in climate. And there is a lot of conferences, a lot of summits, and ideas, solution, and you read a lot of things. But at the end, my role in the urban climatic action is nothing, actually. I did nothing to change. You know, I did so many things in my house trying to work with the climatic action, with the, let's say, recycled energy or passive energy and so on things. At the end, I found that all I did actually is nothing within the huge problem. Because now we give small solutions, one small solution for a huge problem. I think we need trillions of small solutions to solve the big problem. And that's another idea. One of my students in a thesis, she's working on something called acupuncture in urban planning and urban design. What is acupuncture? Acupuncture is the concept of the Chinese solving the problem of pain by needles. They came with a very small touch of a needle on a specific part of the body, and in that specific part of the body, they work to solve your problem. And she's working on the urban planning or urban design of the city. She chose those neglected spaces in the city, and she wants to work on those small places. She doesn't work on the major district and to solve big problem. No, she said, I want to use the system of the needles. I want to interfere in needles to solve the problem of the huge problem. At the end, when she chose something like 50 neglected spaces in the city, and she gives solution for 450 places, what she distributed the solution. And instead of solving one place for one solution and everybody in this place is happy, no, she distributed the solution in a wide range of the. Last thing, holistic approach for collective system of the units. This is the concept. Use less, produce more, throw litter, concept of green. This is the concept of green. I tried also sometimes to explain things in more simple words. When I say use less, it's the concept of green. You don't need to use a lot of things. Produce more. When you use, in the nanotechnology, what they are doing now, they take one cubic centimeter of copper or gold or anything, and they smash it into the size of the virus. So the 6 centimeter area of 1 centimeter of gold can cover 1,000 meters square of land. The 1 centimeter can cover. This is the concept of nano. So if we go to produce more, they produce 1,000 meters square out of 6 centimeters square. So use less, produce more, throw little, and it's the waste. This is the green concept. I'll try sometimes to give it in a better or simple ways. The other concept, read the past for the benefit of the present without compromising the future. This is the concept of sustainability. It's a continuation. That's the main issue. We have to continue into the future. There is a lot of drop now. There is a lot of gaps in the system, and they are trying to, let's say, shorten or to reduce those gaps and drops. Adaptability, usability, compatibility, accessibility, concept of vernacular. The vernacular architecture, it's about use what's available. So I explained it, you have to be adaptable. Usability. يعني if I look around now in this room, I told you, we are going to do something vernacular in this room. You said, in this room there is a lot of technology. I said, well, that's okay. Because we are in this room, and we are going to come out with a solution for this room. We use what's available. We use shades, we use the lamps, we use the plastics, we use everything. When we used it within this area, it's become vernacular. And this is because it's usability. I know how to use things. Compatibility. Compatible, to be like compatibility between the DOS and IBM. Things have to be compatible in this room. What is compatible? Everything has to be compatible. The third thing, accessibility. It has to be accessible. This is the concept of vernacular. Holistic approach for collective system of units. Now, with the LED system, always when I'm driving, I look to cars, the lights of the cars. And they're becoming more innovative in the lighting of the cars, the back lights and the front light, because they use this kind of LED system. Before that, they use one bulb with 100 watt. Now, what they did actually, they divided the bulb, the 100 watt bulb, into 100 bulb, each with 1 watt. So what they did actually, they reduce the energy, they reduce the waste. This is the LED system. So this is how I'm going to be organized. And that's it. And thank you very much for your visit. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Dr. Omar. I would say that this is a resilient presentation, I guess, if I may say. So we are very thankful for you for this informative presentation. Thank you, Dr. Omar. So we're going to just, I'm just going to dive into the resilient plan of Amman, bring Amman to you here in Istanbul, and just a little talk about how Amman is adopting the resilient strategy and how it is becoming one of the 100 Resilient City framework, which is a framework that was established by the Rockefeller Foundation in 2013. So the framework focuses on helping cities around the world to become more resilient to physical, social, and economic shock and stresses. So it depends basically on shocks and stresses, and it starts from there to guide and maybe to inform cities about their problems and shocks and how to mitigate these problems, and at the same time to guide them and guide the logistics and the governance, the decision making towards building a resilient cities, either from scratch or even with starting with the existing situation. So this is what about the 100 Resilient Cities framework. Lately, with the accelerating changes in climate disaster and pandemics, the framework focuses on unleashing climate innovation through powerful partnerships. And that comes from the idea of building a network of cities that can share experiences. So 100 cities and 100 experiences, they are mostly new to this concept. And at the same time, they are open for changes and open for development, and that brings the case to the Sustainable Development Goals. So Amman was one of these 100 cities. There are 1,000 cities around the world that applied for the 100 cities Resilient Cities framework, and Amman was one of the finalist 100 cities. In the Middle East, or in the Arab world, we have cities in Palestine, Egypt, and in Jordan, and they are all starting to build upon the existing crisis and the existing situations. And one of the most important situations in Amman is the increased population, and there is actually a huge jump in population through history because of the situation of Jordan in the Middle East with the neighboring countries, and it is affected by the circumstances around the area. So it is not a new notion, and it's not a new idea. It is as old as the start of migration waves to Jordan, starting from the Circassian migration and reaching to the Nakba and the Naksa and the Iraqi war, and now the Syrian refugee crisis. So the population is jumping hugely and it's changing, and that's one of the main problems in Amman, which increases the pressure on the resources and the demand for the resources. And that's where the idea of bringing Amman to resilience started from. So the resilience strategy was adopting the dimensions, the 4 dimensions that were built by the CRF and the Rockefeller Foundation in 2013 and in 2014. So it was based on health and well-being, leadership and strategy, and infrastructure and environment, economy and society. 4 dimensions that evolved to continue and work upon 12 drivers. And these are the main principles on how to work on the city and to reach to the resilient state. The process of Amman resilience strategy in the case of Amman was to try to include, actually, I would say try to include everyone, starting from stakeholders and including people and including everybody who can make a change, in addition to the governance and the authority and the policy making and decision making. So it was a process of digesting what existed in order to include everyone and finally reach the goal of the resilient city. However, the strategy focused on improving the mobility, promote walkability. I don't know if you, no, you can't. You can see the strategies. So they started from improving mobility because it's one factor of improving the response to climate change. Because when we improve walkability and we improve mobility, it's gonna conclusively affect the climate change solutions. And for that, the municipality of Amman started implementing transport projects and starting with the BRT, the Rapid Bus Transit in Amman. But all the projects are still under construction and under consideration. And on the long term, on the short term, there are a lot of new and ongoing projects because it is taking a lot of time, and with the accelerating risks and with the accelerating threats, there are more threats and there are more solutions that we need, and it is taking forever to implement a solution. So the accelerating changes are changing actually the timeline of the projects and the implementation of projects. However, as Amman, with a population of over 4 million, over 1,680 kilometers, square kilometers, and that is a dense area with a huge problem of demand on resources, and at the same time, the city is part of a global action. And globalization means that more cities and more stakeholders are to be included in the system. So in this case, I would say that we need to include the context, the timing, and the stakeholders. In this term, we need to think about the global acts and the global strategies across the world, and then act local. So how to be critical about how cities around the world work and how climate change changes the world, and how the city can contribute to this process and how can it be affected. So it's a system, and it's not just one city or one country. It is a network of cities and countries. And that would actually raise the idea that urban problems are wicked, because each problem leads to another problem, and we go in the loop. So if we are considering social problems, we cannot just isolate social aspects and just neglect the economic aspect, the political aspect. So all the aspects are included, which makes it harder to make a decision and harder to maybe mitigate the problems that we are facing. That's why we need to address which risk to start first to mitigate, but we are different in terms of culture, and different in terms of diversity, and in terms of characteristics of the city. So we need to put priorities and decide which priority goes first in each case and each city and each decision to make. And maybe if we are thinking or rethinking, I would say, because the existing ideas may not work out of sudden, because there are new risks and new threats, and we need always more solutions and more accepting and digesting and just understanding and analyzing the existing situation. That's why there is a network of risk and opportunities. They just go around each other, and you just go in the loop, and you cannot isolate the risk from the other, one risk from other risks, and that's why we need integration, inclusion, and strategy for long-term plans and short-term plans, because both work together and both mitigate risks and consider the existing situation and the prospective outcomes. So I would say that we may start from communities, and that's one part of the solution. I would say that starting from communities and making communities resilient is one way of creating a resilient city, because we keep arguing about how humanitarian concepts are considered, and we keep romanticizing the idea, but sometimes we forget how to lead people to implement. We think how to implement through leaders, how to implement through service providers, but sometimes we forget about the user at the first place. So the user is one main pillar of the solution, and where to start to find the solution, analyze the problem. But we need to ask ourselves, does the user have access to resources and has access to data that they need to work on and input into the system, and not only be part of the problem and not just part of the data or the process or the implementation. They are all together, including the user and including the maintenance and the assessment into the process. But first, they need motive and direction and approach, and that is the role of the planners and the designers in the city and the decision makers, to lead and to direct people in order to be included in the solutions and included in the decision making. So everything is a system. There's an input, there's a process and an output, and they all work together in order to make the system succeed. But the process of digesting the input into reaching the output needs another dimension, which is the feedback of people and the feedback of users and the feedback of nature, maybe sometimes, and the feedback of all similar experiences around the world. And that feedback is what exactly about sustaining the process and sustaining the solution. So the loop goes around input, process, output, and feedback, which allows more interactions to happen, including ethnography, sociology, and cognitive psychology. And that starts with the user and ends with the user and goes in a circle with the user. And when considering the user, we are considering the environment and we are considering the policy, because everything, the whole system works towards providing the best experience for the user. However, I would ask you, where would you like to start? From the top of the pyramid or the bottom? Who starts first in decision making? Is it the designer and the planner? Is it the public interest or the policies? Who starts first? So I would ask, who agrees with the top-down approach? If you'd like to raise hands, which starts from the authority and ends with the user. Okay, who agrees with the bottom up? Cool. So I would say, let's meet in the middle. We can say that we have a vision, the planning comes from the top down, and the executing comes from the bottom up. And that way, we provide direction, and we provide guidance for all stakeholders, including the user itself. So, do you agree with meeting in the middle, like two-dimensional approach? It's just one idea, maybe. In that way, we might intervene into people's life as designers and planners. We are living inside people's houses and inside maybe people's thoughts. We can design their thinking, not only their places and their shared spaces. So when we are intervening into their lives, we need to be critical and we need to be considering and inclusive. In that way, we reach the best outcomes in the fastest possible process. However, the stages of this process can go starting from the analysis and going through the design. And by design, I do not mean specifically architectural design or designing itself. We can design the thinking, as I said. We can design the mindset, and we can design the activities occurring within spaces that people use and they interact with. We can design nature, and we can design events. So the design process is a process that needs evaluation and needs implementation at the end, but it keeps going back and forth into evaluation and design. So in that way, we are creating a loop of evaluation, implementation, and design. And that goes to the idea of the cycle and the loop. So the input is always continuous, and the implementation is always continuous, and the evaluation for the design and in different stages of design is a good stage that we can rely on to reach the best outcomes. However, the evaluation system may be just absent in some cases, but we can adopt implementation, evaluation processes according to the case, and each case is sensitive. So we decide how to evaluate the outcome. In that way, we are directing the way of thinking into innovation and bridging the gap, which was an idea, the innovative thinking, and like Dr. Omar addressed, that we need to bridge different gaps. So including all these aspects, inspiration, creativity, analysis, technology, development, it is what exists in every space. They might exist all together, and they might be just groups of factors acting together. So we build upon this communication. In that point, I would say that knowledge and experience are both important. However, we need creativity to bridge the gap and to see different perspectives of different angles of vision. And in that way, we connect the dots and we solve more problems in an innovative way, and we put it into implementation faster and more efficient. I would say that in some cases, we do not welcome criticism, and that's a problem because we are all learning from experience and learning by trying and learning by witnessing changes. And in sustainable development and reflecting back to climate change, it is unpredicted. So we need to be open to criticism, and we need to be open for feedback, because feedback is what feeds actually the process of learning and mitigating problems. So that's it, and I welcome criticism if you would like to, and I welcome Q&As, and if you have any questions for me or for Professor Omar, just dive into it. And thank you.